Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with our Atlanta United career mode series here. Getting back into the manager career mode, we're going to start off against the Chicago Fire in this episode. Last episode, we started off the season with a loss to New York Red Bulls, but managed to bounce back really quickly against Minnesota United and grab a win there. So make sure you guys do check out that video if you do want to see who scored the goals. It was a pretty good episode all the way around, but I'm looking forward to this episode for sure. We have Chicago Fire in the first game, and then we have Seattle and Toronto after that. So definitely going to be a very eventful episode. If you guys do remember, we kicked off the season, we were playing really well with Miguel Almiron and Josef Martinez, who actually gets off to a really hot start here, but keeper comes up with a really big save, and Bava's able to keep it at 0-0. We do get a corner from it, and we'll have another opportunity coming up here, but Bava just stretching out and getting a good fingertip onto that, manages to hold the ball out. So Josef Martinez is able to get into a really good position and just knock that ball into the back of the net. His header feels really good in this game, I'm not going to lie. In FIFA 17, that was a big problem with him, is that his finishing was good, his pace was good, but he never really felt like he was getting in the right positions. He was always too short to really get on headers, but they gave him a little bit more jumping this year, a little better attacking positioning, and he gets in the right places to score goals. So we managed to go 1-0 up pretty early on into the game, and here in the 13th minute we get one more opportunity, just passing the ball around beautifully between Miggy and Josef Martinez. Miggy's able to get it on his left foot, and you know, it's all sealed, signed, and delivered at that point when it comes to Miguel Almiron. His left foot in this game is just beautiful. He'll score that 9 times out of 10. And we managed to go 2-0 up really early on into the game. So this is already looking like it's going to be a good result. Obviously, we need to try to be getting as many points as possible and as many goals as possible, because we are going to be basically trying to claw our way back into that top 2 and trying to get on that level with Toronto, who's not going to lose games very often in this season. So they're definitely the dream kind of mark that we need to be looking at here. It's just, you know, the players end up getting in really good positions, and everything just kind of felt right in this sequence. It was just kind of passing the ball back and forth. Ended up losing the ball with Josef Martinez here, and they start kind of pulling away just a little bit, and you know, the ball just gets passed back and forth, and then we just kind of end up losing it for a little bit. But then Jeff Lorenowitz gets a nice tackle. Miguel Almiron and Assad linking up nicely. Assad is going to pass the ball around in the midfield to Carmona. Carmona to Almiron. Almiron back across to Lorenowitz to Villalba, who runs it down the line, fake shots back, and then passes it in nicely to Yamil Assad. And there's the beautiful team goal that we were all looking for. You know, it's a long sequence there. There was a lot going on. But this team feels good. Even when you lose the ball, it's like it's not that big of a worry. Maybe if we were playing against different teams, it would be. Chicago's not really a pacey team, so they didn't really take advantage of that open space in the midfield as much as they probably could have, especially against a defender like Jeff Lorenowitz. But he is able to get back there, get the steal off of him, and just work that ball back into the offense. So we end up ending the half 3-0 up after that beautiful team goal, and just looking for more goals in the second half, but really just making sure that we get the 3 points and look forward to the next game, because Seattle is definitely not going to be an easy game at all. So I just want to, you know, as we kind of wind down here and go into the second half, I did want to say I did upload a Ultimate Team episode earlier today. Make sure you guys definitely go check that out. It's a series called Unite to Conquer, and I'm basically going to be using a bunch of players that I've seen play in real life. There will be a little bit of rule change in episode 2, because I just kind of realized I haven't seen every single MLS team. There are some teams that actually do not count, so I do need to kind of take that into account a little bit. We managed to get a goal pretty decently early on, right off of kickoff. Josef Martinez is able to just run down the field. Starting to really enjoy that celebration between Miggy and Josef Martinez. So Definitely really enjoying those two. I mean, like I said, I really do think it's like the strongest duo out there. And with Yamil Assad and Tito Villalba on the wings, it just feels right. It just feels good. There's a nice balance there. I am going to be looking at some transfers here coming up in the window, which should start in a few months. And I'm starting to scout out some players. I asked you guys last episode to give me ideas on some players. I had a lot of very good suggestions, and I am going ahead and scouting those players. Here we go, 5-0 up against Chicago. Miggy is able to get his second goal, and both Joseph and Miggy end up with braces this game. So 1 goal from Assad, 2 goals from Miggy and Joseph Martinez. And we're storming on, so we're just pushing forward, trying to really, put the hurt on them, see how many goals we can really get out of this. The Atlanta United way, you never really take a foot off the pedal. So we end up making a switch there. Chris McCann getting a little tired, so we bring in Tyrone Mears. I am actually slightly interested in keeping Chris McCann next season. Obviously, he doesn't use a international spot for me because he has his green card. And he's done really well at left back while Greg Garza's been out, so he's definitely a good left back option. So if I don't really find a left back that I'm all that keen on signing, I may actually end up keeping him in the squad. Some of the other players I've been looking at, though, I'm trying to keep it, like I said, somewhat realistic. So I want to go after mainly American players because I don't really want to lose an international slot and have to sell off a player. Chances are I'm going to let Anton Walks go back to Tottenham, and if that does happen, I'll probably have 1 international spot available that I could use, and I may actually use that on the right back position and try to bring in there's a couple of Argentinian players that play both at Boca Juniors, and I forgot the other guy's league, but both of them are very good 76 rated right backs. If I can actually get them in, one I believe I can sign at the end of this season for free, and the other one I would have to pay for. So if I can get them in relatively cheap, then I'm definitely going to do that, and that'll be my international player. And then some other options, I'm just looking at players that are either American or already have their green card, so it's kind of more realistic for me to bring them in. I have noticed though that there are a lot of players that when you're looking at them in the MLS, a lot of players are on 1-year contracts. I don't know how true that actually is, but if it is, we're going to take advantage of it and try to sign as many players to contract expiries as we can. Really, I'm pretty comfortable with this team. The only players I want to have to sign in the window is to replace somebody that I already have. So if Kenwyne Jones ends up leaving, if Chris McCann ends up leaving, we want to try to replace them with like-minded players or better replacements. Other things we could be looking at is if I can't sign Yamil Assad permanently, then I may end up bringing in a new left mid. I'm looking heavily at Emmanuel Boateng from LA Galaxy. Obviously, he can play for the Ghana team, but he has been in America for the majority of his life, and he is available as a full U.S. citizen. So he would not cost me an international spot. He has an amazing amount of pace. He would do really well on this team. And here you guys are going to see here in the 37th minute, or 33rd minute rather, we managed to go 1-0 up. This is a much more difficult game than the Chicago game. Seattle is much more sound, no pun intended, at defense. And it was a little bit harder to break them down, but we were able to just kind of go on a nice little run here. A beautiful touch from Joseph Martinez, and he just smashes it straight at Stephen Fry and manages to grab a goal and put it in the back of the net. So we managed to go 1-0 up. Not too early on, but at a good point in the game. That's Joseph Martinez's 6th goal in, I believe this would make it 4 games. So definitely on a good streak here. He just manages to run the ball again straight through the defense, and instead of shooting it this time, he crosses it straight across the face of the net into Julian Gressel's path, and we managed to get another goal. If you guys did see in the transition of these 2 games, Yamil Assad actually had picked up an injury for 3 weeks, which meant that Julian Gressel did have to come in on the left. So this is going to be kind of a weird situation having Julian Gressel in on the left side of the field, but definitely something that shouldn't be too difficult of a transition. But as you guys see in the bottom left corner, JOSEF MARTINEZ is on the ground, and a ref is actually going to stop play. At this point, he, I believe, dislocated his shoulder, and he will be out for 8 weeks. So that is 2 months that we are not going to have JOSEF MARTINEZ, our top goal scorer in the league and for the club. Kind of just like in real life, not the same game, but he is going to go down with an injury. We're going to bring on Kenwyne for this game. I wanted to give him one more shot because he has been doing decently well in the Ultimate Team series that I've been doing, so I wanted to give him one more shot before I ended up putting Tito Villalba up top and kind of trying to work around that as well as I could. But we are 2-0 up still going into the second half, so long as we can hold off Seattle here. They're just passing the ball around nicely, a decent cross, but Brad Guzan's there to collect it. So we go into the second half, 2-0 up, feeling good, but not great because we do lose our top goal scorer, JOSEF MARTINEZ. Luckily, Almiron's been doing well, and he's been putting in the goals just as much. Maybe a little bit less. I think he might be 2 goals behind JOSEF MARTINEZ, but Julian Gressel is contributing as much as he can while Yamil Assad is out, and I think we will be okay. It's not ideal timing with Toronto coming up next because I knew that game was going to be very high scoring. I knew that both defenses were a little bit on the weaker side, and there were going to be goals to be had, much like the New York Red Bulls game. So to lose out on the top goal scorer definitely changes the way the team is going to play. I haven't really played with Tito Villalba up front that much this year. He was a player that last year, whenever I was playing around with Atlanta United, I put him up front a lot more often because he had better finishing. This year I don't think his finishing is as good, but he is still a very capable striker at the end of the day with a lot of pace. So it'll change the way the team runs a little bit because I don't have a winger of the same pace as Tito. But in terms of the front middle, we should be okay. Here in the 60th minute in the second half, they're able to just work the ball around. Ball goes off the post from Alonso's first shot, and he manages to get the rebound past Brad Guzan. So we managed to only be up 2-1 up at the hour mark in the game. Still not too worried. Seattle wasn't playing incredibly well. I still felt like I was in control of this game. It just kind of looked like a lapse of defense by Tito Villalba at the post because he was a little bit out of position, and it put us in a little bit of a bad spot. But here in the 85th minute, just a little bit of chaos going on in the box with some crossing, but Tito's able to whip that across the face of the net one more time to Julian Gressel, who is perfectly at the back post. I was actually aiming for Kenwyne at that point, but Kenwyne had made a run out of the box instead of staying in it, which actually ended up working out pretty well because Kenwyne pulled the defender there that may have been able to get a block onto that ball. So Julian Gressel's able to get into a good spot and grab his second goal of the game. So that'll be 2 goals for Julian Gressel in this game and 1 for JOSEF MARTINEZ, who did pick up the injury. 3-1 win on the road in Seattle is definitely a good result, and I will take it every day of the week. As we're kind of looking forward, though, maybe I should be looking at another striker because, like I said, Kenwyne will probably be leaving us. I do have Tito Villalba. I do have other options to play at striker, but there's only so much that those players can do if JOSEF MARTINEZ goes down. So if you guys have any striker options, let me know in the comments section down below. I'm kind of keeping an eye out. Like I said, I kind of want to go with an American or go with somebody that has their green card in the MLS, or if we're talking about an international player, they have to be cheap enough so that if I do bring them in, I can kind of make moves around that because I can't have another DP as of right now. We can talk about the whole Tito idea probably at the start of next season is realistically whenever I would kind of be willing to think about that if we don't end up losing one of the DPs we already have. But in terms of like the big name players, like I saw a comment to go get DeAndre Yedlin. I believe at this point, if Yedlin ever came back to the MLS, he would be a DP, a designated player. So I don't think that's as realistic of a signing. I'm definitely going to look at it. If he's cheap enough, then I will try to lure him away from Newcastle, because I doubt I can get him on a loan from Newcastle. and that would really be the only other way he wouldn't be a DP in the MLS. But obviously in real life you would have to pay a decent amount of money for him, because on an American's return to the MLS, their original team has first decline on the player's contract. So technically we would have to pay out Seattle and Newcastle to get DeAndre Yedlin in real life. So not that realistic of a signing. Definitely somebody that I may sign in the challenge series we do with Atlanta United after this one, because he is an incredible right back at the end of the day, and definitely a good signing. Here early on in the game against Toronto, we actually go down within 3 minutes. And, you know, that's kind of what I was worried about in this game. I knew they had the pace in the team. I knew they had the positioning in the team that we could go down, and we needed really good goal scorers. I will say, as we do concede again to Vasquez, to a very weak shot that Brad Guzan probably should have saved, the team felt different. I'm trying to adjust to having Julian Gressel on the right. Yamil Assad was available again in this game, so we did have Yamil on the left. But having Tito up front, his positioning is a little bit different, and it is a little bit harder to kind of try to figure it out. Here, Tito is actually able to grab his goal. Sorry, Miguel Almiron is able to grab the goal here. Again, Tito's positioning is a little weird. It kind of felt like they were switching positions a little bit more often than JOSEF Martinez and Miggy would do. But it really didn't affect us too much in that kind of scenario. Whenever it comes to, you know, breakaway counterattacks, we do still have the pace to attack them. We do not have the wing pace that we did before with Tito, so that does kind of limit us a little bit with playing Tito up top. And for that reason alone, you know, I may look at bringing Brandon Vasquez in at striker, or Kenwyne Jones, giving him another shot. But it just creates a kind of a different stigma whenever we don't have JOSEF Martinez in the team, and we don't have that kind of 3 layers of pace, one on the right, one up top, and one slightly behind. It kind of just changes the pace a little bit, which is another reason I kind of want to bring Emmanuel Boateng in. He'll give us more option to the left. As you guys see here in the 50th minute, I couldn't believe this goal. I was in shock when Josie Altidore scored this. He just took it first time like it was nothing and just whipped that into the top right corner. Like I said, the computer is definitely better this year. I don't know how much better. This is probably a game I would have lost in FIFA 17 as well. But here in the 57th minute, we're actually able to grab a goal back with Yamil Assad. Definitely glad to have him back in the team. I will say that I think Julian Gressel actually felt better positioning-wise in the left mid position, but that may have to do with the instructions that I had on the left mid position in the formation, because I don't have Yamil trying to get in behind. We do end up losing this game to Toronto, though. 3-2 was the final result, and that is dropped points. If we would have won that game, we could have, I believe, taken over into first place over Toronto, but now we are going to be 3 points back and even on games. So at this point, I am going to put up the table here at the end of the episode, but I believe we are a couple points behind Columbus Crew, who is in second, but we do have a game in hand. And Toronto is top of the East with 3 more points than we do. So nothing too crazy, nothing too much to worry about. So long as we get the results against the teams we need to. We do have one more opportunity at the end of the season against Toronto to try to get that Supporter Shield spot, hopefully, because again, I do think the East is stronger than the West, and it really does come down to the teams in the East for who's going to win the Supporter Shield. So that is going to be the end of this episode. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And until the next one, I will see you guys later.
New England Revolution 1, Houston Dynamo 1, Philadelphia Union 1, Portland Timbers 2, Real Salt Lake 1, Vancouver Whitecaps